Hi, Mr. Satpute. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Misha. I'm really happy to join you and have this discussion with you, which is very close to my heart.
Of course. So, sir, as you know, this is Gratify's first installment in our new web series, Culture Champions. And, we thought you would be the perfect leader to kickstart our initiative. We've been fortunate to have a front seat in Bridgestone's journey, where we've seen the cultural transformation that has happened, which is very rare, for a company in the manufacturing space. So by hoping to take your learnings from your people-driven leadership strategy and focus on building a culture of appreciation. So anything you could share with us in that space would definitely be valuable for our audiences to learn from.
Indeed. Thank you, first of all, for your complimentary words on the transformation journey that we have been driving. And I like your title, the Culture Champions. I think culture is a very, very important aspect of any organization. And it's also one of the most difficult to manage. Culture is not like a machine. Culture is not like a reward program that you can fix. It is something which evolves. That's why it's that much more difficult and that much more important.
Absolutely. So in fact, in Gratify, we often say culture is the DNA of the organization, and then all of your processes and outputs happen accordingly. So if you could shed some light and tell us, how has Bridgestone India's journey been so far, and how in your mind is the organization gearing up for the future?
Right. So we are a fairly young organization when it comes to manufacturing sector, right? I know software companies are much younger, but 20 years is not a long time in the manufacturing sector. So Bridgestone has been in India for just above 20 years. In this period, it has set up a strong foundation in the country. Foundation is based on manufacturing capabilities, is based on a brand, is having a dedicated workforce. And sure. I had the good fortune of joining Bridgestone about 3 years ago. And what I found in this company was what I just described: a good company, good, solid foundation. But being part of a global leader and being in a market which is dynamic and growing very fast, I felt that Bridgestone had a potential to become a great company. And a large part of that, there have been many, many different initiatives, but a large part of that has been getting people's minds opened up that Bridgestone India can truly become a great company and can become a leader in its own field. Absolutely. And as you can imagine, it was, it has been a journey with ups and downs, as is very typical. But I can tell you that now when things are starting to fall into place, the 3,000 odd teammates that we have are all very excited with how this journey is developing.
That's wonderful to hear. So when you speak about the transformation, how is that reflected in the culture of your organization?
Yeah, like I started saying, culture is a very important thing. My typical or my favorite saying is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right? Many CEOs, they focus on strategies, they focus on business plans, they focus on execution. All of those are very important. I don't want to take away from that. But having all of those in place, but not having the right culture can still result in suboptimal results, right? So for me, culture was very important. So how did we go about changing the culture? The other thing about culture is you really cannot say, I'm going to change the culture. You have to work on a few different things, and all of these things have to be well aligned. The few different things that we work on whenever we are doing a big transformation, first and foremost is the structure. The structural things like your organization structure, your products, things like that. So largely that was in place for Bridgestone. The second thing that you work on is your processes, is how you do things.
Right.
That has to align to your strategy and to your structure. The third thing is actually the people and their capabilities. Absolutely. So it's well and good to say we want people who are entrepreneurs, but if they're not trained in that, then it's not going to work. Just giving them the power is not going to work.
Sure.
So all these three things, if they are well aligned with your strategy and your goals, then culture will evolve, right? And that culture will be supporting all of these things that I described. So when we were doing a transformation, in a very structured manner, we worked on all these four aspects: the strategy, the structure, the processes, and the people.
Right. So you kind of found the four wheels to the success of your organization, the way you're providing others across the world. So
You
when
could
we talk about that fourth wheel, sir, when we talk about people, you have an extremely diverse workforce. So Bridgestone India has its fair share of blue collar workers, your on the ground sales teams, and a global executive management. So when you try to have every stakeholder involved in your rewards framework or in your cultural transformation, how do you manage to accomplish something like that?
mm, interesting question, and you rightly picked up. We have a very, very diverse workforce. The management team, which was built in the last 3 years, most of them have international experience, have lived abroad, and have now come back to India. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have freshers joining us in our shop floor from some of the smaller towns and villages of India.
Right.
First and foremost, I think everyone must understand what is the vision and the goal of the company.
Mhm.
And they should be able to see how their individual efforts are connecting to this strategy, vision, goal.
Okay.
And once they understand that, then you start to recognize and reward these efforts. And it's not just about rewards. In fact, I would say that the recognition is probably a bigger aspect of
Absolutely.
driving cultural change than just monetary rewards.
Definitely.
And so we realized this. We spent a lot of time in communication, in
Mhm.
making sure that the vision and the strategy is understood, is internalized, and people can connect their own daily work to this. So that was the first step. And then to reward them and recognize them, we have a plethora of different ways. Of course, we have the typical incentive schemes, the monetary incentive schemes, which are linked directly to the business results of the company. But more at an operational level, then we have multiple platforms to recognize people. It starts on the shop floor with Kaizen, which is a continuous improvement tool. In the sales force, it's monthly and quarterly incentives. It's also the use of platforms such as Gratify, where we can give bonus points and we can celebrate people's good performance. So it's a combination of these aspects which has started to work for us.
Definitely. I think the culture of recognition that we see in Bridgestone India, again, why we wanted to start with you, is very rare, especially when you try to make every stakeholder get recognized. And it's not just your superstars across the firm. You have to recognize each one's contributions. So when we spoke about communication, sir, and how you try to communicate the vision of the company to employees at every level. In an increasingly virtual world, how does one maintain that same frequency of communication, or how do you make sure that it's a two-way process, both listening and communicating from your side as a leader?
So actually, Misha, this virtualization that has happened in the last year has made it easier to connect with people individually. Digital technology really has changed the way we can connect individually to people. Let me give you a few examples.
Sure.
Before the pandemic, before March 2020,
Mhm.
we used to have town halls, which means physically I would travel to our plants. We would get about 50 people in a room and we would present the strategy, try to listen to them.
Right.
Whenever I went out to the sales offices, I used to do that. And on the head office here, I used to have a typical what we called chai pe charcha, or in conversation kind of setting, where I sat down with a division and just had a chat about strategy and everything. So
Mhm.
that was before. When the pandemic hit and we were all stuck in our homes, we quickly moved to the virtual platforms such as Zoom and such as Teams. And that really meant that I could connect with a lot more people than I had ever done in the past, because it cut out the physical travel time, right? Both for the individuals and for myself. Also, it became more like a one-to-one connect, because people can immediately put in their questions, can put in their comments. Sometimes people are a bit hesitant in big groups in town halls to speak up, but on a virtual platform, everyone got a chance to have an interactive dialogue. So
Sure.
that actually worked well for us. We have also made a very innovative use of WhatsApp. So during the pandemic period, uh, and not just me, we cascaded this down through the organization. So each team leader created groups of 5 of his teammates and kept it a live chat on WhatsApp. Because if you remember those early days of the pandemic, people were scared, people were stuck at home. They did not know, first of all, how the COVID situation would develop. They did not know whether they would have their jobs because the company was going through a tough time. So it was very important to connect with all of them. And these smaller WhatsApp groups that were used by all the leaders really helped to bind the organization together. So I would dare say that the virtual platforms have made it easier and better to keep the whole organization connected.
No, that's so wonderful to hear, and that really highlights the adaptability that Bridgestone India has as an organization. I was just coming to my next point, where in an otherwise very difficult year for a lot of manufacturing companies, Bridgestone India received a spot in the Great Places to Work in Manufacturing, which was a huge achievement in 2021. So when we speak about this pandemic year, how did you manage to keep your workforce continuously engaged and motivated and happy during otherwise quite difficult year, both personally and professionally for a lot of your employees?
Indeed. I mean, this is a crisis which the world has not seen at all. So trying to think back, I think the first and foremost thing we did, or which was very important to us, was keeping our teammates safe. Right. So we were one of the first companies to, even before the government declared the lockdown, we had stopped our plants and we had got people to work from home, and even the manufacturing team, we sent them back. So I think we realized early on that if people feel safe and secure, then that will be one worry of their mind, and they can focus on delivering the work output. So first of all, we ensured their physical safety during the early time of the pandemic. During the time of ramp up, we made sure that when they came back to work, their safety was well taken care of. But we also thought about their psychological safety. So we started doing these calls that I described, but we also then tied up with an agency which helped with psychological counseling in an anonymous way. So we set up a helpline called Bridge Mitra, where any employee could call and share their worries. I mean, some people had challenges with depression, others had challenges with family disputes. Some people are just worried about what's going to happen. They might not have spoken to the HR department or to the managers, but they were ready to speak to some counselors. So we tried to ensure their psychological safety as well. So these were, the first phase was about keeping people safe. The second phase, I think, which was probably the game changer for us, is we realized that the situation is going to be very, very dynamic, is going to be volatile. So we need to act quickly. And in a large organization like ours, to act quickly, multiple departments have to work together. So we broke down our traditional organizational structure, and we created more dynamic groups focused around some key work themes like customer, like finance and cash flow, like operations. And in each of these groups, we put people, some from sales, some from IT, some from manufacturing, and got them to work in one tight group, thinking not just about today, but how the situation would pan out after the pandemic.
Correct.
And I can tell you that was a game changer, because we came up with 140 new ways of tackling the crisis and doing business. And when the situation started opening up, we were able to quickly deploy these new ideas and were much faster than our competition. So our business results really came back very strongly.
Yes.
So I would attribute the success to these two phases, right? First, to keep them safe, and secondly, to engage people across organizational boundaries to think about the future.
That's very important. So I think that the futuristic outlook that you speak about and incorporating that in each and every employee, and not just your executive management. You spoke
Sorry
about...
Sorry to interrupt. So one more thing, because I picked up on what you said. How did you keep the people happy?
Right.
Actually, I realized that first thing is safety, right? Everyone wants to feel safe. Secondly, they want to be engaged. They want to feel that they're contributing something. But when you're stuck at home and like salespeople are not able to visit customers, production people are not able to produce tires, so they start getting frustrated. So when we created these cross-functional groups, they suddenly felt, okay, here I can contribute something valuable to the company. That made them all feel happy. And this was what was picked up in the Great Places to Work survey, that they, first of all, appreciated the management's concern for their safety. And secondly, they had a huge trust on the business management capabilities of the management. So that's what allowed us, even in a pandemic year, to make the mark and become a great place to work.
That's wonderful. Would you sir attribute, that from what I'm getting from what you're saying is a lot of your employees are happy because they find purpose in their work, and that drives them to kind of show up and do the best that they can. When you speak about balancing then an employee's needs versus a customer needs, especially in times like the last year, what steps would you take to ensure that employee needs are being met, but continue being an undisputed leader in the market when you're focusing on your customers? Because Bridgestone India is, of course, quite apparently a very customer-centric organization.
Yeah, this is the typical management question, isn't it? I mean, what is important, shareholders or employees or customers?
Yes.
And people take different views on that. My personal view and the way I've tried to lead in the companies that I've been is my job as the CEO is to take care of the employees. That's my main job, is to take care of them, make them feel safe, like I said, and make sure they are motivated and know the direction in which they have to go.
Absolutely.
That's the sole job. And then if they're happy and they know where to push, they will automatically take care of customers. And if customers are happy, then our business will be good and shareholders will be very happy. So I would say that rather than jump and start to focus on customers or shareholders myself or in my management team, I would say we devote most of our time to make sure that the teammates, the employees are happy and know which direction the company is headed in. And then the rest, you have to trust that they will do it in the right way.
I think that perfectly answers the question. If you focus on your people, the rest will follow and fall in place. Let me then, kind of end on that note. So with the last question for you, where you spoke about organizational culture, do you think that's driven from the top? And what advice would you give to leaders who are looking to incorporate the same culture and the same connection with their peers at a grassroots level?
So yeah, it would be very nice to say, right, it is driven from the top. But unfortunately, that's not fully true. Like I started out saying, culture is very complex. It's very nebulous. If you say, I'm going to drive culture from the top, you might try to do X and something like Y happens.
Right.
So I think culture evolves, right? It is based on a number of things. And of course, the leadership has a big role to play in it. Absolutely. So everyone is looking up to the leaders. Everyone is looking up to how they are behaving, not what they are saying. So I know it's a cliche, but you have to walk the talk. So if I'm saying customer centricity is important to Bridgestone, then I must walk the talk. Right. So I'll give you a good example, maybe to end. I have at one of the dinners in our house, we had invited a famous performer, a flutist. And we just had a simple acquaintance, but somehow he had my number or whatever. 2 years later, during the time of the pandemic, he was driving somewhere in Bangalore and he had a flat tire, right? He had a flat tire and he could not think of what to do because he's from Pune, he was in Bangalore. So he called me and first of all, he apologized. He said, I'm feeling a bit silly. I'm calling the MD of the company, but I don't know what to do with my tire. I said, don't worry, you're a customer and we will fix you. And I assured him we'd take care. I called my team in Bangalore and within a couple of hours, they were with him and they sorted his problem. And now he's a brand ambassador. So he was on an all India tour and he's posting pictures and sending me comments from everywhere and always telling how good the Bridgestone service is and how good the Bridgestone tires are. So with that one example, I think the rest of the organization realized that we need to respond to customers. Though sometimes it might seem a bit silly, though sometimes many customers can be quite upset with you, but we need to react to them and we need to act to keep them satisfied. So again, it's a culture thing, right? If they see the leaders walking the talk, then they will also do it.
Sure. And just to expand on that, so I think even as a vendor and as a partner to Bridgestone India, we have learned so much, both about culture and how to promote a culture of appreciation that we then take to our other clients. So not just from your customers, but from your partner network, a sincere thank you for all the work that you, Mr. Chaubey, the entire team has done within Bridgestone India.
Thank you, Misha. And like I said, thank you for your compliments on this, but also Gratifi has been an enabler in this, right? So we wanted to do this and your platform has allowed us, and you have been quite customer centric, if I may say, because you have adapted your platform, you have developed functionalities that we were needing. And so it has been a good partnership. So thanks for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.